Welcome to the 10th installment of the Executive Leadership Council Business Brief. I'm Mike Hyter, President and CEO of the Executive Leadership Council. Our guest today is a seasoned communications professional who previously served in the U.S. House of Representatives as Communications Director for former Congressman Cedric Richmond of Louisiana. She began her career as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Kingdom of Cambodia, where she taught English in ministry schools and worked with local and international non-governmental organizations. She has also worked as a strategic communications advisor and trainer for elected officials, national security and foreign policy not-for-profit organizations, and global media and entertainment corporations. On January 20th, 2021, she was sworn in as Principal Deputy Spokesperson at the U.S. Department of State. Please welcome none other than Miss Jalina Porter. Jalina, thank you for joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your warm welcome.
Well, it's really nice to have you. Really, really is. And there's a lot to talk about. So let's get started. We must proudly acknowledge that you, my friend, are the first Black woman to serve as the Principal Deputy Spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State. How has that shaped your experience in the role?
Well, let me just say it's been groundbreaking in every single way. And like you said, as the first, it's come with tremendous responsibility. And I think with any trailblazer, it comes with unique challenges, but it's something that I've been so excited to carry out and walk in the footsteps of Patricia Roberts Harris, of Ambassador Terrence Todman, or even of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. But for people who may not know Ambassador Terrence Todman, he's someone who was a 6-time ambassador, and he was responsible for desegregating our dining services here at our headquarters here in Washington. We actually just renamed our cafeteria after him as well. And I think, again, it's fascinating. After 230 years, there's never been a woman of any color to serve as a spokesperson or as a deputy. So again, we are at a moment in time where I'm so proud to represent my country, to represent you all as well, and to meet the president's needs to advance an American and foreign policy that looks like the country that we serve.
Right. So Jalina, I'm gonna clean out my ears for a minute. Did you say 230 years?
That's a lot of years. I did say that, yes.
Well, first of all, what a blessing to have you in the role, and your appreciation for the wind underneath the wings for you. But that's amazing. That's a crazy statistic. But it's clear the global spotlight is on the crisis in Ukraine. And we're hearing a wide range of stories from a variety of media sources. And social media is providing a level of access that, frankly, we've never seen before in a crisis of this nature. And we're fortunate to have you with us so that we could hear directly from the State Department, what is the latest on the situation in Ukraine, and what do Americans need to know?
Well, I'll start off by saying what we are seeing and what the world continues to see is Russia's unprovoked actions against their neighbor, Ukraine. They started a war that was, again, it was unprovoked, it was unlawful, it's been unconscionable. And we have seen all of the horrific images from schools and homes being demolished. We've seen plenty of people be displaced from this senseless war. But let's talk about what we haven't seen. We have not seen any signs of de-escalation from Russia. And on the flip side, we've also seen plenty of Russian disinformation when you're talking about things you're seeing on social media. So this is something we're actively working to combat. And I think something that we should know and that Americans should know, or, wondering why we're so involved, is because it's about standing up for human rights. Again, this is not just about Russia. It's not just about Ukraine. It's seeing something that's wrong and making sure that we're doing the right thing. We're standing strong with our allies and partners, and strong really within the international community, to make sure Russia knows that we are united to help Ukraine to fight, to defend its democracy and stand up for its territorial integrity. And we've heard President Biden say this from day one, that should Russia attack Ukraine, that they would meet serious and divisive actions. And that's what's happened. We have imposed sanctions on President Putin. We've imposed sanctions on all of his enablers. And as a result, we've also seen Russia's economy plummet from that. I think we've also seen the people of Russia suffer, which has been really unfortunate because we've also seen plenty of people of Russia protest against Putin's war of choice.
Wow. Thank you, by the way, for that. You know, the ELC, you know, we recently hosted our annual member meeting a few weeks ago, and many of our members during a conversation that we were having were just concerned about the blatant racism that we've been witnessing on this global stage, particularly against members of the African diaspora. We've seen firsthand accounts on social media and of people being unfairly treated because they're Black. You know, in your role, how do you respond to this?
Well, let me just say that any form of discrimination, but most particularly in a time of crisis like this, is absolutely infuriating. It's unconscionable, and it's something that we condemn here from the State Department. From our end, we've called on Ukraine's neighbors to make sure, you know, since seeing this report, that they call on their neighbors to make sure they keep their borders open. You know, just like the Ukrainians, there are other people who are there. There are other refugees and other third country nationals who just want to flee this senseless war. And we work with UN agencies on the ground to make sure that they have the resources they need to make sure that all of these refugees, all of these third country nationals, not only get the equal protection they deserve, but are able to flee in peace and get the fairness that they deserve as well. But again, you know, any form of discrimination, let me repeat, is completely inappropriate.
Yeah. And, you know, I have to say her name, Jalina, because there's a strong perception that not enough people are speaking her name, and that's Brittany Griner. What can you tell us, and is there anything we can do about that?
Well, I want to start off by saying that the safety and security of all U.S. citizens all around the world is the utmost priority for the State Department. In the case of Ms. Griner, we have been in constant contact with her legal team, and we have been very latched on to this case. We've also called for plenty of access to for consular access to see her. And I can confirm that earlier this morning, we were granted consular access, and an embassy official was able to see Ms. Griner on her safety and her security. And we can say is she's doing as well as anybody could in a very, very difficult circumstance. And while we do, you know, the Russian government did grant us access this time around, we continue to call for the consistent and persistent access to, again, all U.S. detainees. You know, we continue to advocate for their equal rights and their freedom as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What's the most impactful action that we as individuals, organizations like the ELC, and corporations can do at this time in general?
Well, I think you're saying if I'm talking to business owners, there are a couple of things that you can do, or a couple of things that we can talk about. One of the things that we have right here at the State Department is the Overseas Security Advisory Council, or we like to call OSAC for short. So if you are a business owner here in the United States and you have operations anywhere overseas, there's a program that you can apply to that's a public and private partnership. And the benefits of this is that it connects directly with our diplomatic security service here at the State Department with private corporations. So you can be a faith-based community, you could be a nonprofit, you can be in academia, you can be in whatever form or faction. And if you have operations, it's something that you want to be a part of because you can get up-to-date information, you can get analysis of local and global threats on the ground, and you also have a network. So this is something that your members might want to consider. I'd charge them to visit www.osac.gov to learn more information on how you can apply and the different levels of membership.
So www.osac.
Correct. .gov.
Okay, thank you. Often, when we're in the midst of a global crisis that sparks such widespread attention, there are other crises that go unnoticed, but are bubbling up and rising to the point of being just as serious. Is there anything you want us to be aware of?
You're absolutely right. There are a number of ongoing crises that we deal with day in and day out, no matter what time of day and night here from the department and quite frankly, across the interagency. I'd say a couple of things that we are still focused on is one of the things that President Biden has been focused on from day one, which is the COVID-19 crisis. And as you know, that is a global crisis that we're still dealing with today. The president made sure that he made a promise that we were going to get shots in arms. And we know that none of us are safe until all of us are safe. And I know we just recently passed the 500 million mark on making sure that we donated that number of vaccines free of charge to other countries. And again, it's so important because, again, we're so interconnected all over the world, and it's still something that's among us and still something that we should think about and care about, especially when it comes to your business operations, your day-to-day and everyday life. Another thing that we continue to work on are our climate considerations. I'd say from day one, the first thing that President Biden did as president was rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. And that's a framework to make sure that we are making time to be climate resilient. And I think we're not only thinking about what's in front of us tomorrow, we're thinking about generations to come and how to be sustainable. And quite frankly, it's something that brings plenty of countries together. It brings us together with countries that we might otherwise not normally get along with, but it's something that we know we have to combat together.
Mhm. Okay, good. And of course, how can we best provide support and make a difference, particularly when it comes to the safety, security, and equality of Blacks and those from the African diaspora?
Well, I just want to start off by saying that racial equity has been a pillar of the Biden-Harris administration, and it's quite frankly, it's a priority. It's a priority within this department as well. And you mentioned other things that are going on in the media, and just because right now we're in a news cycle where we're focused on Russia, Ukraine, I want to make sure to people who are watching that our efforts to ensure fairness across the board has not stopped. It has not slowed down. We continue to advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at all levels. And I think it's important to know that, the UN now has a permanent forum of people of African descent to make sure that the lives of African descendants who have endured racial discrimination, who've endured the legacy of enslavement all around the globe, have a better life. But I'll also note that I see some organizations outside of what we're doing in the US government who are doing great work to support the African diaspora. Outside of my own official capacities, I'm very active in my links chapter. I serve as the International Trends and Services Facet co-chair. So I've done a lot to make sure that I brought members of my organization awareness on what's going on today. I'm a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, which international awareness and involvement is a pillar. We see these organizations doing great work overseas, and we need to keep that ball going. I'm also a member of Women of Color Advancing Peace, Security, and Conflict Resolution. So all of these organizations continue to do great work in supporting women and girls and other marginalized communities all around the world. And I'll just say it's been so impactful, not only for me personally, to have people as esteemed as US UN Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield come and speak to my organization, but at the same time, me speaking to our Delta Gems or some of our youth and explaining to them what the State Department does, letting them know that they have options to have careers in the Foreign Service or even in the civil service, letting them know what it meant to be and how my life changed when I was a Peace Corps volunteer and how it set me up to this trajectory right now. So I would say support generations currently and support generations to come when it comes to learning more about foreign service careers.
Awesome, great. And I want to build on that just for a second, because it would be irresponsible for me to sit here in front of you and not ask you this question. And lastly, how can we support you being in such a pivotal and critical role, particularly at this moment, that we're in? We just want to make sure that we are mindful of what can we do to support you specifically.
Well, thank you for that question. I think that the biggest thing is, again, this connectivity right here and making sure you're following what we're doing. I do have an official Instagram and Twitter account where I break down complex issues, where I always share what's going on. I want to make sure that you're guided to our website. We have a lot of, media notes and advisories that go out every day that focus on not only Russia, Ukraine, but the work that we're doing all the way around the world. And I think to one of your questions earlier, you talked about, what equity means and supporting that. Something that I've done, not only carrying out the president's goals of racial equity is making sure that's prevalent not in our press corps as well, because it's just as important to make sure we have diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility among our workforce and leadership, as well as our storytellers. So it's important to me. I actually drafted and penned a letter to outlets who had not traditionally covered the State Department to let them learn, hey, this is how you sign up for our press releases. This is how you sign up for a press pass and are able to come and join us when we have a less restrictive COVID posture. So if you are in contact with some of these outlets and want to make sure these issues are up to date, send them our way. I think that's another way to be impactful here.
Great. Well, Jalina Porter, I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with me today. The ELC and our members, we look forward to serving as allies in support of the State Department, and know that we are extremely proud of you and all that you are doing for all of us in this position. And we wish you continued success. We really do.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to our viewers, as always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us for the next installment of the CEO Business Brief with me in April. Have a good day.